way I manage to study for multiple exams at the same time is by following 3 steps.
If we work really hard, I know we're gonna do great on these exams.
The first step is to figure out how big are those exams. That's a pretty important question to ask, right? There are a few ways to figure that out. First thing I do is to figure out how are the points for each. So in Europe, for example, we have something called ECTS points, and that stands for, let me check, European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System. And that basically means that is the volume of learning based on the defined learning outcomes and their associated workload. So that's pretty good, right? That's what we want to know. Well, if you don't live in Europe, I'm pretty sure that they might have some other points for each subject that you can check out. I checked, for example, for my upcoming 2 exams, which is dermatology and ophthalmology, and each of them had 4 ECTS. So it means that they're equally big, right? Should we just listen to that and be like, all right, I'm gonna equally spend time on each of them? No, not really. But it gives us a good idea. At least for that is not, the one of them is not that like 10 or the other one is like 2, right? So there's not huge difference between them. The next thing I do to figure out how big each exam is to go and see how many lectures each subject has. If you watch my previous videos, you know that the way I start studying for a new subject is first of all to figure out how many lectures I have and which topics there is in each lecture. But I will put it up there, the video I'm referring to. But yeah, basically what I would do is that I will see how many lectures there is and then see how many topics there is under each lecture. So based on my 2 exams, I can see that ophthalmology subject has like 3 classes or 3 lectures, and my dermatology class has 18 classes. So that's huge difference, right? So, but what I already did is like, I know like how many topics there will be under each lecture, so I can also see based on the pre-preparation I made for before studying that subject, and I can see already clearly that there is like way more topics for dermatology. Based on the first step, I can say that my dermatology exam is way bigger. So I must spend more time on dermatology exam. Then we have step 2, which is to figure out what style of exam each subject has. Subject.
What's your style?
My style?
So let's say that one of the exams is like practical exam and the other one is multiple choice exam. Well, of course you need to study differently for that practical exam, or maybe even more for that practical exam if you're not used to it. Whereas a multiple choice exam, I guess like it will require less, right? So it's very important to figure out early on before starting like any studying for the subjects, to figure out what is the end goal here, how am I going to study for this, right? For example, in my case, I can see both of my exams, they are multiple choice exams. And I can see actually that they're quite similar in the way of the questions they're asking. Of course, in dermatology, which is all about skin diseases, they have more pictures. But I see also in ophthalmology, they also have some pictures. But of course, in dermatology, it's like all based on pictures, right? We have to recognize skin diseases when we see it. So obviously, it seems like I have to focus more on dermatology because I'm not used to look at pictures of skin diseases, and I have to learn to recognize these patterns of skin diseases. So it's also a personal thing. Let's say you find it just more difficult, one subject than the other one, then you need to focus on the one you find more difficult. And in my case, I find dermatology more difficult, especially because I have to recognize all these pictures. And so, yeah, that's the second step. The third and final step is planning. And you might hate planning as much as I do, but It is so important to plan when we have multiple exams. It doesn't have to be strict planning like hour to hour, but at least we must have a plan.
Denise, make a plan. I'm on it.
The way I do it is simply to figure out how many hours I sleep, work, exercise, YouTube, the socializing part, and of course the studying. And all the other life stuff, like chore, like doing groceries, cooking, all these things, like approximately. It's not like I'm going into details how many minutes I spend on eating, but in general, how much time I spend on all those things. After we have decided what things we are prioritizing, then we can know how much time we actually have on studying. So some people might start with saying, well, after my sleep, then is my studying that is most important. Then, all right, then like you have to prioritize it that way, and you have to put the amount of studying according to how much you want to spend on studying. And that can look very different from person to person. Like personally, I don't think the more we study, the better it is, like at least not for me. So I always aim for those hours where I'm most effective. So for example, I would say I would maximum spend 6 hours a day on studying. Of course, when is the days or the week up to exam, that's like totally different story. But in general, this is like a long-term planning. Like I need to be realistic. So what I do, I figure out which time of the day I'm most effective, and then I will plot in those hours. So for example, I put like 6 hours in total for studying for these 2 exams, because then I put like 4 hours for dermatology and then like 2 hours for ophthalmology, because as I said, it seems like dermatology in my case is requires more time for me than the ophthalmology. So that's how I divide my plan. So of course, if you find it equally hard, well, more exams, well, then you divide it like 50-50. But it's very important to make it realistically, especially because we have multiple exams. It's super important when it comes to that, because we don't want to end up just telling ourselves to study like 12 hours a day and just burning out, or not even following the plan because it's so unrealistic, and then we end up just falling behind or being mad at ourselves. We didn't follow our plan, so what's the point?
Part of my job is to help you be realistic.
Make a realistic goal for yourself. Again, start with figuring out what are the things you're doing during your day or week. Like prioritize those things. Make sure that you're sleeping enough and eating healthy and exercising. All these other things are so important for the effective planning and studying itself. And always plan to be done with the content at least like 3 days before the exam. So my exam's on Friday. I'm aiming for being like done with every content. Like at least I have seen everything once by Monday. So I have like 4 days or something for revising everything. I also want to mention that some people prefer to study for each subject at a time, and I totally understand that. I also have been doing that quite a lot previously. It makes sense, I would say, for certain exams. Like the last episode I had where I had multiple exams to study for, one of the exams were super small, like it was 2 ECTS points, like super low, and everyone kind of knew from previous years that this exam they just spent few days on it maximum, while the other exam I had like some days before, it was like very big, like 10 points more. Like there were huge difference. So what I did last time was like I started with focusing on the main big ones, and then I went to the exam, and then I had some days left to study for the other one, and that's how I did it. But and also tried where I had both of them on the same day, I think, or the day after, so you don't have these days in between where you can start studying for the smaller one. But even though they're small, I wouldn't recommend it, because I just end up being super stressed the days before. Like I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's not that small, or maybe, you know, it's the exam might end up looking different. Like usually it works out. If I had to change something, I would start with studying for the small exam, and then I would study for the big exam, because in that way I made sure that I at least looked at it once, instead of like stressing totally that like few days before when I haven't looked at this exam or this subject at all, and then just sitting there 2 days before, I'd be like stressed out, because it is always stressful to start looking at an exam just like few days before. So this is just my recommendation. I don't know if you get anything of it. I am rambling a lot, but yeah. All right, I'm gonna end this video here because I'm just talking and talking, and yeah. I hope that you got something out of this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I don't have many subscribers, so I have plenty of time to respond to you guys. And yeah, if you enjoyed this and you want to support me, then please like and subscribe. And of course, if there are other videos you want to watch of mine, then they'll be popping some of those here. See you!